Silence. It was over. That easily. Part of Shen Qingqiu couldn't believe it. He'd barely done anything and it was over? He patted Shan Qinghua's shoulder. Hey, didn't you say that Tianlongjun would be hard? Shan Qinghua was still in a state of shock. He is hard. Is this victory logical? No matter how hard the boss is, he shouldn't think about flaunting his power in front of the protagonist. Isn't that the widely accepted logic? The two of them looked around. They'd come with dozens of people with full HP bars, and now barely 2 or 3 were still standing. Shen Qingqiu then looked at the 2 individuals who he'd previously regarded as a super hard final boss team. One was impaled against the wall and soaked in fresh blood, while the other lay flat on the ground. Together, they made a great match for descriptions like, quote, trampled and tattered doll, unquote, and, quote, puppet and its strings cut. He felt not the slightest bit of exhilaration one usually got from beating a final boss. The more he looked, the more he felt that it was basically the same as bullying the sick and elderly, or shamelessly ganging up on victims using strength in numbers, and they'd indeed gained up on these 2. But who could have known that this would be the result? The boss's strength was way too far below what he'd imagined. Luo Binghe turned, expression tranquil and without a drop of blood on him. Shall we kill him? He was referring to Tianlongjun. When Zhuo Zilang heard this, he grabbed Zhen Yang's blade, struggling to pull it out. A great deal of the scales on his neck had been scraped off in the battle. As he exerted himself now, blood flowed forth from his body in streams. Ever since Shen Qingqiu had learned of Gong Yixiao's death at Zhuo Zilang's hands, a knot had existed in his heart. But this image was too unbearable. It was difficult not to feel sympathy. Though Shen Qingqiu had been screwed over countless times by his bizarre methods of repayment, Zhuo Zilang had never shown him any malice. Shen Qingqiu sighed. Look at the state you're in. Why let yourself suffer so? Zhuo Zilang coughed up a mouthful of foamy blood and rasped. The state I'm in. He smiled bitterly. What if I said that my appearance on Bailu Mountain was my actual true form? What would you think then, immortal Master Shen? It was like a bolt of lightning had struck Shen Qingqiu's forehead. What? So the slithering snake man from Bailu Forest, that was Zhuo Zilang's original form? Zhuo Zilang gasped for breath. My bloodline is lowly, all because my father was a simple-minded giant snake. I had this half-man, half-snake appearance from the moment my mother gave birth to me. Until I was 15, I was always hated and discarded, or insulted and driven away. If not for my lord, who helped me take on a man's form, even guided and supported me, I would have spent my entire life as a monster that could only wriggle on the ground. He gritted his teeth. My lord gave me my first chance to become a person, and immortal Master Shen gave me my second. Perhaps to both of you, this was only a small thing. No more effort than lifting a finger. But to me, these were favors I must repay, even if they cost me thousands of lives. An immortal Master Shen asked me why I let myself suffer? Tell me, how have I suffered? Tianlangjun suddenly sighed. Foolish child, why say so much to him? Though he was on the ground, his pose was still as graceful as ever. If you could remove the half of his face that had deteriorated from demonic qi, he would have looked even more elegant. People always believe that those of a different race have different hearts as well, he said leisurely as he stared upward. Even the person dearest to you can deceive you in the blink of an eye. Besides, it was only ever your one-sided desire to repay him. No matter what you say, he won't understand you. He'll only find it troublesome and refuse to comprehend. So why say so much? In a moment, everyone at the scene fell silent. Once a good and guileless young man, Tianlangjun had joyfully fallen in love, yet it had been nothing more than a sham. Then, for countless days and nights, he'd been sealed beneath a high mountain where there was neither sun nor sky. Who had the right to stop him from resenting them? Who had the right to make him, quote, let it go and look on the bright side, unquote? Yet Master Wu Chen said, if your distinguished self really possessed no malicious designs back then we are at fault for listening to slander. If so, this calamity today is something we could neither run from nor avoid. Those who sow seeds of evil will reap the rewards, for all will eventually come around. He brought his palms together. But even if it meant ingesting poison, Benefactor Su wanted to see you, so how can you condemn her for deceiving you? Tianlangjun startled a little, then raised his head. Shen Qingqiu was also stunned. He knew that Master Wu Chen would never lie, yet the version of the story he told next was completely different from what the others had known to be true. Back at Donghua Monastery, said Master Wu Chen, because this one didn't wish to subject Benefactor Su to criticism when she had already passed, and because this one promised to keep a secret, he was unable to speak the truth. The old palace master brought Benefactor Su back to Huanhua Palace by force. She absolutely refused to obey orders, refused to trick you into going to the site of the ambush, where several dozen arrays had been set in advance. The old palace master only discovered she was pregnant when subjecting her to torture within the water prison. Forcibly aborting the fetus would have endangered her life, and on top of that, Benefactor Su was resisting with all her might. So the old palace master gave her a bowl of poison, that poison fatal to the demon race. He told her that, as long as she was willing to drink it, he'd let her out to see you. Benefactor Su drank what the old palace master gave her, then left the palace alone. She didn't realize that change takes but an instant, that the situation was already other than what she thought. The old palace master had switched the site of the attack to Bailu Mountain, where the two of you had met in the past. Tianlangjun was completely stunned. His body was mangled and blood still stained the corner of his mouth. Despite this, he struggled to raise his head, like he wanted to hear more clearly. There was an indescribable pitifulness to him. This one met Benefactor Su on the road to Bailu Mountain. At that time, it hadn't been long since she'd drunk the poison. She was covered in blood, and it dripped with every step she took. This one listened to the few lines she gasped out and guessed their general situation. Unable to bear deceiving her, he told her that several days before, Tianlangjun had already been sealed for all eternity. Only then did she realize that her master had told her a monstrous lie. Not only the location, but even the time had been false, all for the sake of making her drink that poison. In accordance with her pleas, this one helped her avoid the Huanghua Palace disciples who'd come to capture her, then escorted her to the Luo River's upper reaches. After that, he never saw any trace of her again. Tianlangjun, Benefactor Su, indeed might not have been a wholly good person. Originally, she stood high as a next Huanghua Palace master, with great expectations upon her. In the beginning, her decision to approach you might not have been made with good intentions. But afterward, which was it? Did you maliciously bewitch her? Did she set you up and deceive you? Or were both of you simply unable to help your feelings? This one is an outsider, so he can know nothing of your heart. But what he does know and what he did see was Benefactor Su refusing to listen to the orders of the master who'd raised her for over a decade. Even when tormented in the water prison, she refused to say anything, refused to trick or harm you. If not as a last resort, what mother in this world would drink that kind of poison? It wasn't that she didn't care about you, but that she was without alternative. Yet the world is pitiless, and you passed each other by. Tianlangjun's lips seemed to tremble slightly. A long moment passed, then he said, "Is that so?" Right after those 3 words, he asked again, "Truly?" "This one swears upon his life that his words contain not a single falsehood," said Master Wu Chen. Tianlangjun turned his head to look at Chen Qingqiu and Yue Qingyuan. As if seeking confirmation, he asked, "Truly?" He didn't even care whether someone was in the know. He was just asking anyone he could. Unable to say anything, Yue Qingyuan silently lowered his head. It was unclear what he thought. Shen Qingqiu deliberated over it further, then finally gave a slow nod. Perhaps the old palace master originally had no intention of vilifying and harming Tianlangjun, but as he watched his disciple grow closer and closer to him, he must have regretted sending Su Shiyan to approach the demon. He'd allowed her to leave his control and fall in mutual love with Tianlangjun, even conceiving Luo Binghe. So the old palace master had made up his mind. He distorted the truth and cherry-picked the details. His orchestrations transformed Tianlangjun into a matchless fiend who wanted to overturn the 3 realms. And so he brought ruin to so many lives and so many years. The smattering of snowflakes on Tianlangjun's eyelashes trembled with their movement. Then, like all his strength had suddenly left him, he lay down once more. He sighed. "All right. In any case, finally something less terrible unfolds." Shen Qingqiu turned his head to look at Luo Binghe. He listened from beginning to end, but it was like he'd heard nothing at all, like none of this concerned him. He even let out a light laugh. With this truth out in the open, the knot within Tianlangjun's heart had naturally come undone. But to Luo Binghe, the cruelty of the situation hadn't lessened in the least. Regardless of whether it was because his parents hated him or because they had given up on him, in the end, he had been thrown away. Black smoke and purple miasma continued to spew from Xingmo's sword without pause, and the sounds of slaughter from below grew clearer and clearer. Michael Ridge's descent was still ongoing. Just how much distance remained before they reached the Luo River's frozen surface? Yue Qingyuan took several steps towards where Xingmo's sword was embedded in the wall. The situation has thus far unraveled, Shen Qingqiu said. Bring an end to this, Tianlangjun. If Tianlangjun stopped now, it wouldn't be too late. But if he continued to supply Xingmo's sword with demonic qi, then their only option to prevent the merge would be to kill him. And now that all was said and done, Shen Qingqiu didn't particularly wish for Tianlangjun to actually die. After all, to end up in this state due to falling in love was really just unfortunate. To demand his life on top of that? What kind of boss is this pitiful? Yet Tianlangjun suddenly let out a stifled laugh, the sound echoing through the cave. Look, Peak Lord Shen, he said, tilting his head like he found something incredibly funny. As I am, I can't even maintain Zhu Zilang's human form anymore. At that moment, Shen Qingqiu didn't yet realize the meaning within Tianlangjun's words. He only felt something lurch within his heart. Having fought with all of you for so long, the toll on this body of mine was no small matter, said Tianlangjun, slow and measured. Who do you think has been sustaining Xingmo's sword and supplying it with demonic qi all this time? His words were neither fast nor slow, but as they entered Shen Qingqiu's ears, each one seemed to plunge him into icy water, and his neck slowly stiffened. You should be telling someone to bring an end to this, yes. Only that person isn't me.